big news items, the AI frenzy continues here in Silicon Valley, all the way from early to growth stage funding through to M&A events. We saw this week Databricks, which is a privately held data infrastructure company, announced that they were acquiring Mosaic ML for $1.3 billion. That headline number is based on a cash and stock purchase price, where the value of the stock that was being used to acquire Mosaic ML was based off of the last round's valuation for Databricks, which was $38 billion from a fundraising that they did in 2021. So arguably the valuation should be lower and the overall purchase price could be considered lower, but that's besides the point. Mosaic ML, as you guys may remember, is a company I mentioned a number of episodes ago, led by the founder of Nirvana, which was an early AI business that was acquired by Intel. And then he started Mosaic ML, and he offers open source models. And I shared the performance data of their most recent announcement on the show a few weeks ago. There's rumors. I don't have any confirmed reports, but there's rumors that Mosaic ML saw their ARR grow from $1 million to $20 million since January. There was other rumors that said they were only at $6 million of revenue. Regardless, Databricks is paying a pretty hefty premium. And I think it begs the question, what do data infrastructure, database companies end up looking like in the future if AI has to become part of the core infrastructure of every enterprise? And this is creating a big shift. So Saks, as our enterprise software investor expert, maybe you can share with us what this means for the sector. Does this buoy excitement for AI infrastructure startups? Does this change the investing landscape? Is it just reinforcing what folks are already doing?
I think it's a reinforcement. I mean, this space is probably the hottest space. We were talking about like AI infrastructure for enterprises. I think it's probably the hottest space right now in venture land. We actually looked at this deal. We had a small allocation in their next round. They had a term sheet for a Series B. Emergence was actually going to lead it. And
this is Mosaic ML?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling you all this, but
no, it's done now.
The bridge. Yeah, go ahead for it. Yeah, it's
this is great. This is why people tune in.
Breaking news.
Breaking news.
They had a term sheet from Emergence to raise $50 million at 400 posts.
Wow.
And we were going to have a small allocation in that. And as I recall, the valuation was somewhere around 30 to 35 times ARR, which actually is not that insane for a very fast growing company in a hot space. So that implies about 10 million of ARR. I don't remember the exact figure, but I think that's sort of the ballpark, but growing very, very quickly. I mean, up from like 1 or 2 at the beginning of the year.
Right.
So I actually understand why someone would want to acquire or invest in this company. Like I said, I think we wanted to invest. And while we were sort of, trying our best
you didn't say anything when I talked about him on the show a few weeks ago. You were just sitting there, mum's a word, or?
Actually, I knew that this deal was basically in the works because the founder called us up and he had already promised us a small allocation in the round. Naveen did. And he called up and said, actually, I've got this deal. So we're putting the round on hold. And so I didn't think I should say anything because obviously it was still ongoing. But yeah, we knew about this deal that was kind of coming down the pipe. I didn't know for sure that it would happen. But yeah, we heard it was in the ballpark of this like $1.2, $1.3 billion number, which like you said, because Databricks is a private stock, maybe it's only 50%? Half of that or 750 or something like that. Who knows? It's still a great deal. But, a lot of people are saying it's a crazy deal. I don't think it's a crazy deal because before this happened, after Naveen signed the term sheet for the Series B, an investor came over the top to invest at a $700 million valuation.
Oh, wow.
So people were kind of going crazy. Now, I don't think that's necessarily irrational behavior. I think that's more of evidence of a mania going on. But I think that what he got offered is obviously a fantastic deal. And I think what it's evidence of is that these big enterprise infra companies are going to try and build an end-to-end tool chain here. And I think Mosaic ML had a very, very important part of the tool set, which is training up these models, basically maximizing GPU efficiency, because GPUs are basically the scarce item right now. We have a GPU shortage, and it's probably not going to get better for a year or two, if that. So this is a very important part of the stack, and I think it's probably a smart acquisition for both.
Yeah, it seems to me. I mean, remember Snowflake, which competes with Databricks, also acquired Neeva, which was founded by one of my colleagues, a guy I work with, and knew, a really great guy, Sridhar, for $150 million last month. That deal was announced. And the pattern recognition that seems to emerge here is that if you're in the data infrastructure business, it seems like it's becoming critical to level up, that it's not just about storing and moving and manipulating data, but the interpretation of data through models and the tooling to build those models becomes a critical component of all of these toolkits that these software companies have to provide to their enterprise software companies. And it's a big leveling up that's necessary, which seems to me there's other companies out there like them that are also going to need to strap on tools like this to make themselves competitive in this marketscape, which means that there are more acquisitions still to come.
Yeah.
Chamath, JCal, you guys agree or have a different point of view?
Looking at it, it's a big number, the headline number, but I agree with Sachs that the actual number's half the number. So if it was, if you look at the number of engineers they had based on LinkedIn data and PitchBook data, probably 60, 70 employees, 80 employees, and then 40, 50 of them are engineers. So that puts it at $30 million per engineer. And that's one way to look at these acquisitions. And I think, probably $3 to $10 million per engineer for like really high-end engineers is more the going price. But if this is half that amount because they bought it with monopoly money, in other words, their 2021 price for their company, it's great. And I think you nailed it, Friedberg. What's happening is this layer of natural language on top of any service, whether it's something as simple as Yelp or something as complicated as a giant financial company with tons of transaction data, being able to talk to it and understand it, and then have your machine learning team build tools so business owners don't have to hire data scientists. The actual business leaders can talk to the data and get back answers, or just say, hey, tell me about our customers. How have they changed over the year? And then, hey, that's pretty interesting. Tell me more about our customers. And, how are they reacting to these 3 new products? And you will get back intelligence that previously was unable to be accessed. And so I was just at Sequoia yesterday with, or 2 days ago, with the latest 7 graduates from our accelerator. We bring them to meet with Sachs and his team. We bring them to meet with Sequoia. And when we were at Sequoia, I realized that of the 7 companies, 4 of them would not have been possible before these machine learning APIs were available. And OpenAI is but one. There are now, in the companies I'm talking to, they're trialing Friedberg on average 6, 7, 8 language models before they pick one, and they're not picking OpenAI every time. Putting that aside, these businesses were not possible before this technology was introduced and available via API in the last 6 to 12 months. And I think there's a bunch of businesses that economically would not work that now work. I can give one example. There are countless meetings that are recorded over Zoom, right? Think like a local school board meeting. Well, nobody could ever make a database of all the discussions going on at local school boards and then analyze all that. But now, because all of those are saved on Zoom and they occur on Zoom and they're available for public record, you can ingest every single one of those and then build a Bloomberg terminal of every discussion happening at every school board everywhere in the United States. And do that with ChatGPT or any of the language models, and then get really great insights from it. That would be too costly to transcribe at, $100 every hour or two and normalize, let alone to analyze. And so I'm looking at businesses as an investor. What I'm looking at right now is businesses that were previously not economically viable before this technology, and then that are now economically viable, if that makes sense. And I'm just looking at each company under that lens right now, and I'm finding a lot of interesting startups. And they seem to have that in common.
Chamath, similar news supporting this very quick evolution.